All right, I think we're good to get started here. Welcome everyone to our part one in a three-part series on of our webinars on Blueworks Live. Today's session is an exciting one. We're going to talk about how both Blueworks Live and Process Mining can be integrated with IBM OpenPages. My name is Jared Michalek. I'm VP of Innovation and AI Applications at Salient Process. We are a true blue business partner, work closely with IBM, and I'm joined by Bob Spory, who's Principal Worldwide Sales Lead for CloudPak for BA. So Bob, welcome. Maybe do a mic check, make sure I can hear you.
Yeah, Jared, thanks so much for inviting me on here. It's exciting to be back and working with you and Salient Process.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Bob. And for those of you who do not know Bob, he has got a deep background in Blueworks Live and process automation. In fact, I would call him the OG process ninja. If you're familiar with his series of workshops that he's done over the past several years around Blueworks, so definitely excited to collaborate here. So let's go ahead and get started. The agenda is going to look something like this, where we're going to just talk a little bit about the problem statement and why this is an exciting area, and get into some of the product details. If you're not familiar with any of these technologies, we want to make sure we do a quick background on those. But really the star of the show is going to be around the solution overview and demonstration, and talking about not only what you can do, but how you can do this, and really seeing a number of different use cases and areas where we can really dig into this. So let's talk a little bit about the problem statement. To start, if you are not familiar, IBM at the beginning of the year combined a number of their brands into one single overlaying product offering. And this is now called what IBM calls data and AI applications. And this includes the business automation technologies that you might be familiar with: Blueworks Live, Process Mining, Workflow, Decision Management, Document Processing, Content Services, et cetera, combining that with the former data and AI portfolio, which includes IBM Cognos Analytics, Planning Analytics, and OpenPages, as well as many of the watsonx technologies. In doing that, this has opened the door to a number of different possibilities. If you were not able to catch our Cognos, our two-part Cognos and Blueworks and Process Mining webinar that we did a few weeks ago, please check out the replay. Happy to share that. But this is kind of a next phase of that theme, where we want to talk about how we could leverage the governance, risk, and compliance technology of OpenPages with the process improvement technologies of IBM Process Mining and Blueworks. So let's talk about some of the gaps that we're seeing in current GRC initiatives. So when we think about risk management and managing risk, OpenPages has done an amazing job of kind of capturing the risks that are out there, being able to apply specific controls and documentation and audits, and being able to track that over the life cycle of all of those different pieces of information. But there's still some gaps that we're finding, and this is where we're going to talk about today. First, there's not a really good graphical representation of the process itself. And so if you think about how risk appears in a process, in a business process, it would be very useful to be able to see where that shows up and be able to represent that process in a visual way. It's hard to see where those risks and those corresponding controls appear in the process. So being able to not only visualize the process itself, but also start to overlay where those risks and where those controls are appearing. There's often data replication. So this is not a new theme. We've seen many clients looking to take the power of Blueworks, combine it with the power of OpenPages, but often that leads to data replication, redundancy between different systems. And so understanding how we could mitigate that and make that just easier, have one source of truth, would go a long way to improving our GRC approach. There's also missing details about the risk and audit events. So when we think about the root cause analysis and what are some of the pieces that go into an audit and a risk, being able to dig a bit deeper and be able to get some real history and understanding behind what's going on with those different events. And there's not a really good way of enforcing. So OpenPages does a great job of documenting, making the risks and the potential areas of exposure visible and be able to report on those. But what if we really want to add alerts and add monitoring to the existing process and understand why some of that is going to happen? And then lastly, that root cause analysis that I mentioned, and event chaining, right? Within OpenPages, we're capturing history and we're capturing details of the risk events, but we're not able to kind of tie those all together into an understanding and even look at those from different dimensions in terms of, is this a departmental issue? Is this a geography issue? Is this a vendor issue? And so being able to look at that, those events and those audits from different perspectives. Let's talk a little bit about OpenPages itself. We're going to show a quick live demo as well, but OpenPages is the leading GRC platform on the market, right? It's really allowing you to do many different things that revolve around risk, controls, audits, and allowing you to overlay things like questionnaires and insights, and even infusing it with AI to be able to be more predictive, being able to provide it in a very intuitive way. And so we see many different modules within OpenPages. We're going to focus in on the process and audit pieces. So just understanding how you can start to look at risks and controls as it relates to your core business processes, right? And there's a number of different ways that we can approach this. And these are just some of the different modules that we can leverage from OpenPages, all the way from IT governance and sustainability, modeling out risks, and also integration with third-party applications. And so there's a wide variety of different things that we can do here. But again, those gaps that I mentioned earlier still do exist, and we see an opportunity there to both mitigate as well as take advantage of some of those areas and really see that 1 + 1 = 3 scenario. So with that, I'm now going to pass the baton to Bob to go through some of the details and some of the background on both Blueworks Live and Process Mining.
Hey, perfect. Thanks, Jared.
Oh, it's thinking about it.
I'm thinking about it too. So we're both on the same. So hey, so thanks, Jared. As the slide's pulling up, so Blueworks Live is a product or a type of product that I've actually been part of for over 20 years, which is surprising because I'm so young that I must have started when I was 10 or 11. I wish, right? Okay, so with process modeling, there are challenges that companies face, and with these challenges, tools will help you improve the way in which you do things, right? That's why we have these tools like process modeling and other tools, is that they're aids to help you do your job better and get more information. So typically what I like to share with customers is, as you can see here, right, there is an iceberg here, and along the top is usually what we know about processes, because this is really what we visually can see. And by see, I mean, when we talk to people, we go down and we talk to people in operations or lending or human resources or wherever we go, right, in the organization. There are things that we know about these processes, and the people that work within the processes are very intimate with what's going on. They know these things, but there is just a lot of things that we don't know about processes, which is kind of underneath the water. And why don't we know? Well, the reason we don't know is we just don't have visibility or insight into what's going on, right? It's just the nature of the beast, if you will, right? We have things running, we have systems doing things, we have people doing things, and just in general, there's a challenge around productivity and compliance, agility, and even quality and consistency, because these are just things we just don't know, right? So next slide, please. So I'm here to talk about Blueworks Live, okay? And Blueworks Live is cloud-based software, and a little fun fact here, it was IBM's first cloud product. So when you hear of everything being in the cloud, Blueworks Live was there first. We do continual updates on this product 3 times a year. It is SaaS-based, which means all you have to do to use it is you just log on and there's built-in training and tutorials. Much like I'm kind of a video game guy sometimes, and video games have that where you log in and then it takes you to a special area where you kind of learn how to play the game and learn how to whatever. It's a little bit like that. When you log in, you're prompted to go through some tutorials. But the value of this is a tool that provides guardrails. In other words, it helps you successfully model business process by providing some structure and, as I said, guardrails around what you're doing. And so the idea here is that we're going to get together with the people that understand the process, the managers, the workers, even customers that participate in our process. And what we want to do is work together to document and model them. So it's very much, if you guys have seen like flow charts before, it looks like a flow chart, okay? But instead of a flow chart of data, right, this is a flow chart of steps that either a person does or a system does. Okay, next slide. All right, this is all right. So this was my attempt at of doing something funny / interesting. Okay. So basically, the reason I'm highlighting this here is that there are reasons that process modeling projects often don't turn out the way people expect. And why are we even modeling these in the first place, right? We need to understand what's going on in our process. It's like going to the doctor, right? Process modeling is like going to the doctor where they put you on the scale, they weigh you, they check your height, they put you in the little room, you sit in there for a while. Someone comes in, takes your blood pressure, asks you a bunch of questions, right? Are you depressed? Do you do this? How often do you drink alcohol? No, I plead the fifth, right? So you go and they ask all these questions. That's process modeling, okay? So if you think about it, when you're working with people and you're trying to document what they do day to day, there are some challenges. And these are what these challenges are. So first of all, is oftentimes people use the wrong tool for the job, right? What we're suggesting is using this process modeling tool so that you can effectively document what's going on and really get understanding of it. So you can start to see below the line of the iceberg, right? If you just use like a tool that's a generic, modeling software that just comes with, your Office suite or whatever, that's not gonna provide the results you need, because there's going to be a lot of difference between how everyone models. There's not going to be these guardrails that help people model in a consistent, in a friendly way. Also, other tools don't have the ability to collaborate within the tool, and people are sending emails and calling each other. This tool provides messaging and a number of things inside the tool so that all the work about the process is in there. Oftentimes people are resistant to change, as we know, and sometimes using the right tool can get them involved and let them participate, because this tool is very, very easy to understand. So you don't need a lot of training, right? Some tools require a ton of training. This tool doesn't require that. So you're getting all that advantage right off the bat. Also, how do you balance detail and simplicity? How do you capture the exception processes? And this is the biggest thing, is that usually an exception is like, the way we talk about it is there's a path that some people call the happy path, but it's the path that you want all of your processes to go down, like new employee hiring, right? You want all of them to go smoothly without exceptions. Exceptions are where things fall out and someone has to do something, right? And if you don't know what those exceptions are, you often have trouble. So we look at customers and they'll think that they have like 7 to 8 exception paths, and we'll model their process and they'll have 150 exception paths. And every exception path costs more money and more time. Okay. Also, there's complexity, integration challenges, no single source of the truth. So how do you know which is the most recent process you're working on? Okay, flip ahead, Jared. All right, so this is the follow-up, and you can see that curvy road's a straight road now. But there's really there's 10 reasons why this product is better than using white paper, whiteboard, all that kind of stuff. And you can see here, you can collaborate with your stakeholders. It's the right tool for the job. It's easy to use and it's simple, easy interface, doesn't require training. It aligns with your business goals, so you can map your processes based off of your strategies. It's a single repository for the truth. What this means is that if I go and look at the process and Jared looks at the process, it's the same process. Version control is handled automatically for you. Consistent level of detail. You can add not only the process picture, but the information about who does the step, like who was the role, what system was used, how long did it take, what was the input to this step? Was it a data structure or was it a document? You can also integrate with other automation tools, which is what we'll talk about later. But Blueworks Live is a great place to capture this information, and then you can use that information in other ways, with process mining, for example, right? Or some other products as well. We also have visualization and clarity and standardization, and we can understand exceptions. So again, the idea is that this tool is providing you this framework to be successful, capturing what's going on in the process. Okay, next slide. Okay, and I'll do process mining, correct, Jared?
You bet. Yeah, go for it.
All right, let's keep it rolling. I like your little AI icon there. All right, so next slide, or image there. Next slide, please. All right, so this is great. These are problems that business faces. So we design the process, right? And this is just a visual representation. So this is kind of how we design it. We think the process is going to go step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4, right? That's how we think it's going to work. We've modeled it. We've done some things. This is kind of how we think it operates. So we design it this way, and this is how it operates with a couple exceptions, as you can see. But when we look at the process from a different view, this is really what the process looks like. Okay, so again, this idea of clarity from modeling in that standpoint, we can get part of the picture, right? The above and slightly below the water picture. But how do we really find out exactly how it operates? Years ago, when I was presenting this technology to customers, they would say, why don't we have like some software crawler that would just go and look at all the applications that are used and then just tell me what my process is, right? Why can't we do that? Well, this was, in 1999, right? When we were partying like it was 1999. When we were doing that, we just didn't have the computing power or the ability to get information in and out of databases fast enough, right? We did a lot of technology. It was putting things into databases and bringing it out. But you really have to kind of stream data in today's world to make it work and not necessarily throw it into all these different databases. Long story short, this is really what's going on in a company. And we think this is what's going on. So there's that difference in really what's going on. Next slide, please. All right. So enter this idea of process mining. So process modeling, right, we talked about. That's where we get in a room with people and we look at methods and procedure documents. We do everything we can to capture what's going on, just like going to the doctor, okay? Process mining is like when the doctor asks for additional tests to be run, on like blood test, thyroid test, whatever, any of these tests, MRI, X-ray, right? That's kind of like process mining, because the idea here is that we're going to take all of this information that is part of a process. We're going to take those sources and we're going to put them into process mining. And then process mining is going to give us insight into what's going on in the process. So if you think about it, on one side of the coin is Blueworks Live process modeling. All the humans tell me what they did. The other side is, oh my gosh, we're in the future now. We can actually have software go out and figure out what our process is doing. Why can we do that now? Well, we have computing power and we have technology that allows us to process a tremendous amount of data. That's why we can do this today, where we couldn't do it 2 years ago. This concept of a digital twin is the idea of taking all the data and information in your organization and making a twin copy of it. then with the twin copy, that's where we do all the analysis and so forth. So what process mining will do is take the business process that we created, right, from the human perspective. It can take logs from mobile logs. It can take it from system logs. It can take it from CRMs, ERPs. It can take it from other IBM software. It can take it from non-IBM software. It takes information from the user's desktop and the keys that they click and other information, and it takes it and then it formulates it and puts it into what the process really looks like. And then we can compare that to what we believe it looks like from our process perspective. All right, sir? All right, before I hand this back off to you, Jared, first of all, thank you for having me today. So the second thing I want to, I guess, leave as closing comments, as think about these as like tools in your toolbox. I know it's a kind of a basic concept, but each one of these tools does something that's really important. So what does Blueworks Live do? That involves the people that work in the process, the people that are the customer service people, the human resources people. Who is better than them to tell you how to fix the process? What are the problems? What are the issues they are facing, right? There's a tremendous amount of knowledge in people's brains that we need to capture. So if they leave, we don't lose all of this intellectual capital, right? So that's the first part. The second part with process mining, again, this is just new technology. It's just because we live in the future now. And we're able to do these sorts of things. So imagine you model your process, you take that, you move it into process mining, you compare the way you think it runs to the way it really runs, and you make changes. One of the things that we did is we went out to our existing customers that have business automation workflow implemented. This also works with other workflows like Appian or Pega. And what we did is we put all that log information into IBM Process Mining, and we were able to make recommendations on a production system to improve the way that it's running based on a number of factors. The way that tasks are handed off to different people, the way that the way that exceptions are handled, all of those sorts of things are captured and improved. And you can even do like what if scenarios and simulations to see if I change this or I take this out, what will it be? So long story short, these are two different tools for kind of two different audiences, but together they provide a complete picture that we need. So with that said, Jared, I'll turn it back over to you to see the overview and the demonstration.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. And yeah, just to reinforce that, our finding is that you do indeed need both, right? It's not a one or the other. And as we see certain use cases, it's actually two sides of the same coin, right? We're looking at the same process, but we're coming at it from two different perspectives. And I'll throw out another shameless plug for a previous webinar. We did a two sides of the same coin, Blueworks Live and Process Mining. If you have not seen that, go take a look at that one as well. And one last note too on the AI image, Bob. I thought this was funny because I think this is one of the only images I've seen that was generated by AI where it actually spelled a word correctly. So that's why I thought I'd use it in this deck. But let's go ahead and jump into the overview now. How do we bring these three critical pieces of technology together into one seamless solution? And we're going to start with some use cases, right? These are proven use cases that we have implemented with other customers. We're going to go through 6, and then we're going to show these in action and show how this actually works in practice. So let's start with the first. There's a source of truth. Where do we know that the real information lives? How can I manage that? How can I version that? How can I make sure that I'm going to the right place? So making sure that we're keeping that information in the right place, that we have a single source of truth. We're able to link the accounts together so that we can quickly go from one to the other when we need to see that information in a different light. We're going to look at the process documentation and be able to capture that information that we have inside of our GRC, but also looking at it in visual ways through Blueworks and Process Mining. We're going to talk about automated discovery, so being able to actually pull information from running systems and from log files and from transactions and be able to build that process automatically. We're going to do what Bob just mentioned, which is how do we know that the way we think it works is the way that it is working, or the way that it should work is the way that it's actually operating, and making sure that we're staying within conformance, because it will be different, but how different is going to make a difference, and making sure that we're staying within the bounds of what we want to do. And that takes us to our sixth use case, where we're going to talk about ongoing monitoring. So let's run through these really quick, and then we're going to bring up the live demo. So this source of truth idea, I have risks and controls inside of OpenPages. I also want to expose those risks and controls inside of my process mapping platform in Blueworks Live. How do I do that? Easy. We integrate, right? And so within OpenPages, we have this concept where we're capturing and building these risks and controls, and you can see on the bottom there we have the list of all the 1,500 different risks that we've documented. I can push that information directly into Blueworks and make that a read-only glossary term that I can then attach to those process maps. That's extremely valuable. And we are not allowed to add new risks inside of Blueworks. We have to pull from that list. We have to use that information, but it's going to be up to date. And that timing could be instantaneous. That could be every 30 seconds if we want it to be. So it's a really kind of real-time feed of the risk information and the details, and we're using that inside of Blueworks Live. We can also link the accounts together. And what I mean by this is, once you've documented a process inside of Blueworks, how do I know what process that is actually going to be in OpenPages? And how do I quickly go from OpenPages into Blueworks in order to view that process in a more graphical way? You can see in this view where we are documenting this process P01, and we are able to look at that folder structure, look at the space structure, and we can replicate that inside of Blueworks Live, right? That allows us to have that same folder structure, the same tags, the same process name, and we can then use that information, document the process, and then link that process inside of OpenPages. So you can see I know it's small, but we'll show this in real life, where we've actually created a permalink to that process. So if we are in OpenPages and we need to get into that process map, we can quickly jump from one tool to the other. So that's a very nice way to do the documentation, the mapping in the right tool, but we can always go back and forth, right? And we're actually looking at ways that we can do this in an even more integrated way, where we could embed certain functionality inside of the tool. The new API that IBM released a couple weeks ago for Blueworks Live is really opening the door to a number of new use cases that we're exploring with our clients. All right, we'll talk now about the automated discovery feature. So imagine if in OpenPages I have lists of risk events and audit history and all this information that I could put to use and put into action using IBM Process Mining. So if we're able to pull that information, pull that data, and attach basically a minimum of 3 links, an activity name, a timestamp, and some kind of correlation ID to bring those together. And it will automatically, within seconds, build that process for me and let me dig into that and do things like root cause analysis and different kinds of visualization and analytics, as well as simulation. And I can start to really understand not only what the process looks like, but why it behaves the way it does. And then conformance, right? We've modeled something in Blueworks. How do I know that it's actually running the right way? So I'm pulling, again, this is kind of the 3 legs of the stool. Now we're talking about going from Blueworks, importing that process map into Process Mining to overlay with the information that we've captured from OpenPages and understand where are the differences and why are there differences, and are they going to be important differences or not. And then lastly is the ongoing monitoring, right? Using Process Mining to really uncover real-time information that's happening inside of our process, so I can know if I'm actually going outside of SLAs or if I'm hitting certain metrics that I shouldn't be, and all that information that was documented inside of Blueworks. All right, let's get to the demo. All right. While I bring this up, I do want to quickly highlight again, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, that there's a Q&A in the webinar main room. So please do post some questions there. We will leave time for questions. Again, we'll probably wrap up about 1/4 of, so we can spend the rest of the time going through questions. Okay, so now let's bring up our demo environment. So I'm going to start with OpenPages, and OpenPages again is a very powerful process or a risk management tool where we can capture some of this information. And what I want to show is some of the integration that we've built into this OpenPages model. All right, so again, I have my dashboard. I'm coming in as a process owner. I can start to look at different information in here. And the one that I'm going to focus in on in this demo is this P01 process, right? I'm going to click into this. This is just, for simplicity, I just named it P01. But we're going to see some details about the process that we want to mimic in Blueworks Live, right? So some of the information that we see here, if I scroll down, I can see some things like how critical is the process. I can look at my risk and control information and see all of the risks that are appearing in that process. I can look at what we call process charts. These are basically heat maps of where we see different kinds of inherent versus impact impact, and then the residual likelihood, the residual impact, right? All this information is useful for really digging into the process. And then I have the concept of a process map. Now, this is the visual that we get in OpenPages. Very useful, so I can see the activity names, I can see the different information. It just does not look like a process as we would understand it coming from a Blueworks Live background, right? So there are some things that we could pull from this and perhaps automatically generate the process inside of Blueworks Live. And I've done that. So now what I can do is right from OpenPages, I've embedded a link that we can go and jump into our Blueworks Live environment. And my account timed out, so I'm just going to log in again. But it's going to be very seamless, where we can go from one view into the other, and I can now go and see the process map. We do see that the hierarchy is the same, so we can maintain that hierarchy of the process. We also see that the tags are the same. So looking at the different tags, audit, BCP, ORM, and then within that, I can go in and start adding the risks and controls directly here. Because they're being fed from OpenPages, I can go and choose those risks and controls and see that they are not editable, right? They are going to be something that I have to pick from a dropdown, and I can add as many as I want, but I'm not able to add new risks. I have to do that in the right tool, which is OpenPages, right? And as I make changes here, that link, since we have a permalink coming from OpenPages, that's going to remain the same. And it goes both ways, right? We have bidirectional integration. As I create new process maps inside of OpenPages, it will automatically generate those in Blueworks, and then I have to go into Blueworks and create those. So that link is an automatic link that's created when I create this process in OpenPages. Of course, the actual documentation needs to take place inside of Blueworks Live. All right, now let's talk about process mining. So there's a couple of different angles here. The one that we found really interesting is the ability to go and pull data from OpenPages directly. And so I've done that with what we call risk events. So if I bring this up, we see, bringing this up again. There we go. So these are risk events pulled directly from Blueworks, and they're useful right now in this view because I can kind of see the different reporting. But going all the way down, we have thousands of these risk events that occurred. How do I visualize that in an actual process? And so we're going to use Blueworks Process Mining to do that here. So let's go ahead and bring up IBM Process Mining. And I'm going to create a new process. We'll just call this my OpenPages risk events. And I'm going to open that same file that we just had. And so we can create the process through a number of different ways. We can do it through how I'm doing it here, where I'm importing in kind of a batch mode and assigning different fields to that. We can also do this in an ongoing basis. And that's where I think the real power of process mining starts to come into play, is not just discovery, not just initial analysis, but the ongoing monitoring and understanding what kind of impact certain changes, such as adding controls to a process, would have on the overall flow. So here, I'm just going to add a couple of field mappings just for the sake of the demo. We have a status that can be our activity name, so a status change can be considered an activity. We have the start time or start date, the occurrence date, that'll be our start time. And we can add other details too, but right now I'm just going to add that the location and the area is going to be our ID, our unique correlation. Now I'm picking this one kind of arbitrarily. You can pick other IDs, right? It could be a risk event ID, or it could be a location ID, or it could be a department ID. All of those could be used for that mapping. But in our case, we're just going to use those 3 fields for the sake of the demo, and this is going to build the process for us right in front of us, right? So here's the process that was created. Now, again, we had about 1,400 different actual events that translated into 21 unique cases, right? Because we are using the geography plus the department as our kind of map there. And it's not just about viewing the process and understanding it. And in this case, we see the heat map being frequency. We can change the heat map to be rework, duration, cost. If we start associating cost with resources. But what I can do here is really dig into possibly the rejected status and seeing some of the different pieces of information in terms of how this breaks down, right? What different processes are feeding into that? What, how many are, more are coming from the Asia Pacific retail banking area. But the more information, the more data that I add to that mapping, the better this analysis is going to be. And then I can also view this as a BPMN. So if I turn this on its side, I can start to understand why it goes down certain paths. We can see all the gateways, both the splits and the joins that were added here. I can start to go in and say, do some rule discovery to see certain patterns, certain issues that are happening within the process itself, and really starting to break down the reason why it goes from one step to another. And so just digging into that, we don't have a lot of data that we've added here, but you get the idea that we can start to really do some root cause. And then the ongoing monitoring is a big piece as well. So understanding as this is happening, all of the different variations, all of the different possibilities of that process, and even digging into certain events that have happened. So clicking into one and seeing what flow did the North America agent services, I didn't like that one. We'll pick a different one. Yeah, I don't know why that's not working, but you get the idea that we can kind of dig into each instance and see the flow that one instance took. Okay, so coming back over, I did want to throw out one other honorable mention here, which is our add-on tool, Blueworks Insights. Within Blueworks Insights, we're able to add additional reporting and kind of bridging the gap between the different pieces. This adds a lot of value in terms of having the marriage of the information we're capturing in OpenPages with the information we're capturing in both Blueworks Live and gathering from Process Mining and being able to do things like risk matrices and additional charts and graphics. This is a free add-on that we provide to our Blueworks Live customers. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up and see if there's any questions in the lobby. Bob, any last words as we close this out?
No, sir. Just thank you so much for letting me participate. And for those of you who have not worked with Salient before, I would really encourage you just to give them a call. I mean, I've worked with Jared, I think, for over 20 years at IBM and also Salient. And so if you do have some questions or thoughts or ideas, there's also tons of other stuff that Salient does that Jared didn't even speak about. But if you're looking for cutting edge and taking advantage of some of the existing investments with just a little bit of work, I definitely suggest you check out Salient and give Jared a call for sure.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, and if
bet.
you want to get in touch, you see our email addresses here. You can also scan the QR code that takes you to my event booking link that you can book time on my calendar. I do see a question in the chat from Sunil asking about out-of-date risk. So this is a big deal in Blueworks, not just for risk, but any glossary term that we want to keep track of and make sure that both the process documentation as well as the glossary information is not being not outdated, we do have specific reports and insights to handle that. So that's a very common thing that we've seen in the past. I would recommend us probably starting there to understand what risks are showing up in Blueworks that maybe haven't been touched in a while or haven't been updated in a while. And we can do that for any glossary term or any process. So that's, I think, definitely where we'd see that. And then I'm looking through the Q&A here. We've got a question from Kaushik. How does risk mitigation strategy work as an editor? Can always remove risk from the process. So you can remove risk and you can add risk to the process, certainly as an editor. That's your responsibility. That's what you need to manage, but that's not removing the risks from the glossary or from the repository, right? So yes, that's kind of what you're doing as a process owner or process editor, is attaching those risks and removing those risks as needed. And then there's a question here about, could you please provide guidance on how to quantify the usage of licenses for both OpenPages license and Blueworks Live? If I understand the question correctly, those are separate. Those are definitely going to be separate licenses. And so right now, there's not a way to kind of move those back and forth. There's not a flex point option for OpenPages where you can use the same license for both. However, I think there would be some interesting reports that we could create that help to connect the different accounts. Certainly, single sign-on would help with that, where you can provide single sign-on, but actual management of the licenses are still going to be separate for both of those tools as well as for process mining. All right, we're going to give folks one more chance to.
Hey Jared, I did have one. I do have one comment, and we talked about it a little bit, but so there's this integration with OpenPages, and Jared mentioned, oh, by the way, we integrate with process mining and stuff. And the way to think about this is, we have an entire business automation portfolio that Blueworks Live and process mining is part of. So, part of the, just to reiterate, part of the value here is that, once you find out what's going on and the issues that you have, we do have, and Jared and his team, they have the techniques and the technology to fix the problems that you have, right? So first of all, like with my iceberg, we saw that the problem's visibility. Okay, well, we have visibility now, right? So now that we have visibility, we know what we need to do to fix problems. And it's a lot more direct than it was in the past. We can even understand what the effect of the change is going to be before we make it. So I can't iterate enough that, there's a lot of value in new processes and new technology, but you can take a look at what you currently have implemented and improve their start skills there, and off you go. So that's just my final thought.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a whole story to be told around how you take this to the next level using the other automation tools, right? We see this all the time with going from Blueworks into something like workflow decisions, document processing, leveraging some of the powers there to really start enforcing and operationalizing the information that we're collecting with these upfront discovery tools. So if you're interested in that, certainly reach out. We do have other webinars coming up. In 2 weeks, we're going to talk about how we can use generative AI with Blueworks Live to create process, analyze process. And then I think 2 weeks after Think, we're going to have another in our series around Blueworks Insights, that add-on tool that we mentioned earlier. So with that, I think I don't see any other questions in the chat.
And by the way, Blueworks Live Insights is amazing. So if you do have like 30 minutes to check that out, it's amazing. It's just like, you take Blueworks Live and it's just kind of like, you put all that time and effort in, and this allows you to see the data and information in so many different ways. It's fantastic. So that's my personal favorite, Jared.
A couple more. Yeah, thank you, Bob. And there's more coming in the near future too, with the opening up of the API by IBM of Blueworks Live. That's really opening the door to some really exciting things that we're doing, including the generative AI capability that we mentioned that we'll be showcasing in a couple of weeks. There are a couple more questions on there, so if you want to stay on, we'll talk a little bit about. There was a question about OpenPages being part of the Automation Cloud Pack. It is not. It is part of the Data and AI portfolio, but it's not part of Cloud Pack for Business Automation. But yes, it should absolutely be integrated, and that is something that we're seeing increasing now that IBM's brought these products under one umbrella. We're starting to see more and more synergies between the different tools, and seeing out-of-the-box integrations start to be built, or reusable integrations, I should say, that Salient's building. And then I think, Sydney, we will post this replay, but in the notification, we'll also include the replays of the other webinars we mentioned, the Cognos Blueworks session, as well as the Process Mining and Blueworks session. So stay tuned on that, and you will see on probably on LinkedIn over the next couple of days an announcement on those upcoming webinars. So please do register for those. Very exciting topics there. And then we'll be showcasing some of this at the IBM Think Conference starting on May 20th, if you're going to be in the Boston area. So with that, I think we'll wrap things up and close out. So thank you very much for joining, and have a great week.